gentleman in the back is going to be much happier up close and see things better. I won't pick on you. Come up a bit. The boss is going to tell you to move up soon anyway. There's a lot of info. Yeah. You're going to enjoy it much better if you're a little closer, because it's a small screen. I haven't got into it. So right now we're watching live cyber threat matrices. The red are malware attacks. You see purple, the phishing attacks, and yellow are exploit attacks. This is a live feed sourced from Threat Cloud on this. Your top threats right now are utilities, education, and ISP providers. On the right-hand side in the middle. The top malware types right now are botnet, backdoor access, and phishing exploits. And they're coming out of the countries of Mongolia, Dominican Republic, Indonesia, Malaysia, and India. You have to ask yourself why. And the answer to that is the fact that none of these countries have legislation in place that prevents them. So those are all where all the bad actors can operate with impunity and not get shut down or otherwise. You're going to see a lot of counterattacks coming out of the United States directed at different countries. In particular, the west coast of the United States, you'll see a flurry once in a while. You've got to ask yourself why on that, and the answer to that is quite simply who do you have operating out of the west coast of the United States? You have, Google, Amazon, Microsoft. Right? Three of your biggest actors out there in the world. So they're re-attacking as things go on. Something just came out of Montreal there. There's another one. Heading down. And so a lot of the stuff out of the United States and Canada are reverse attacks. And then you'll see massive, what's called known as an array attack, like that one, that just went through. So they're masking that. That's called a massive array attack. And they're trying to infiltrate as much as possible, or the reverse engineering. So although it looks like a lot of it's from the States, the other piece too is they're using VPNs, which is masking their IP address, that ultimately shows that they're in the States, but meanwhile they're acting from somewhere else. But the source is still showing Mongolia, Dominican Republic, Indonesia, Malaysia, and stuff. You can Google these. If you just look up threat matrix or threat map, there's about 5 or 6 of them that'll show this for you from a point of view. There's a lot of exploits going on right now, but stereotypically the majority of these are Trojans, and they're ramping all over the place. You're on, Bill. You just gotta eat it.
Thanks. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. Even though it's Super Bowl Sunday, it's great to see a few of you here, and especially for this session on building a barrier against cybercrime. My name is Dale Domain. I'm SUMA's Southwest Regional Director, as well as the Mayor of Mortland. Just a note before we start today's session, this session is audio recorded, so if you'd like to ask a question, we'd like you to come up to the microphone, state your name and your municipality clearly into the microphone, and then proceed with the question. That means that the question will be recorded and that everybody in the room, including our speakers, can hear your question. Also, if you have a question from your seat, you can ask that question through our new convention app that we're excited to introduce this year. So that question will show up in the session on the app. You enter your question into the Q&A section. We will then ask the question on your behalf. And that means, again, that it's recorded. Later this month, the presentations will be available on the SUMA YouTube channel, and we want those recordings to be a good resource for you. So now it's my pleasure to introduce Keith Elliott, CEO of Reed Investigations Limited. As a seasoned professional investigator of more than 28 years experience, Keith has practical involvement in identifying risks, investigating fraud relating to criminal enterprise, employment, healthcare, insurance services, fake deaths, disability, cyber scams, as well as various payment platforms. I want to mention that Keith is also an ex-policeman. For those of you with the SUMA Convention app, you can read more about Keith's bio in the app. When you read the bio, you'll see that Keith has put a lot of time and energy into gaining the knowledge that we have come to share with you today, and really timely for them. We like to have presenters and information that is of value to you. So please give our speakers your full attention and be open to any of the information that they apply to our municipality. Some lessons are going to be easier to apply than others. So everyone in this room could use the valuable information when we go back to the office. I want to mention too that this session is sponsored by the Insurance Bureau of Canada. So thank you all for joining us today, and give a warm welcome to Keith Elliott.
All right, so those of you at the back, I'm going to promise you're going to be much happier if you come and move up the front. There's a lot of info on these slides. Hard to see from back there because some of the fonts, the screen's pretty small. We're expecting a bigger room with a bigger screen. So I encourage you to move up. There's lots of seats. I won't pick on you if you move up. I'll give you a second to do that if you want. But you're going to be happier, I promise you. There's a lot of info on these screens. The other thing too is you're happy to take photos through them, but the slide deck will be available. It's going to be available at Food booth at 169, and I'll repeat that again at the end. And if you put your business card in their draw lot and ask for the presentation, they'll give you the entire slide deck. And I'll have business cards up here as well at the beginning. So we're going to talk about breaches and cybercrime and deal with a lot of different scenarios here. And I'm going to give you real life examples on how this works. There's three types of compromise that you're going to face. Essentially, it's those individuals that have been compromised and know it. Who in the room qualifies for that right now? A couple. So that's going to be the one. The more scary part is the ones that have been compromised and don't know it. And the last one that's going to be is that are about to be and are absolutely clueless. And that's the majority of the people that are going to face a compromise that you have no idea, you think this doesn't apply to me, I don't need to hear about this, it's not relevant. Well, guess up. Let's wake up and smell the coffee. It's 2020, and we need to look at what things are there, because if the government, in all its resources, can get compromised and have information flowed out there, then certainly us, as municipalities and smaller corporations, certainly we can as well. So they're hitting right now with ransomware. They still haven't recovered from what I've looked at. This is brand new, hot off the presses, just from January 26th. So here we are almost a month later, and they're still dealing with the ransomware issues with respect to this. They say that there's no evidence of any information that's gone out with respect to their organization through the attack. Well, they don't know that because they're locked down. So how do they, there's no evidence. I agree. There is no evidence saying that anything's gone out the door. Until you unlock your systems, you're not going to find out. So the reality of that is it's going to affect everybody. No personal medical information has been compromised. That's where wearers can report at this point because they don't have their systems back. So that's what it is. It's a crippling effect on that. And it's not just Saskatchewan. It's whether it's medical attacks for life labs, where 15 million people reported, but ultimately that turned out to be close to 30 million people, almost all of Canada, operate through life labs, and all that information is at risk. Desjardins, a bank, an insurance company, another one out there, compromised. How? Insider threat. So it's those employees with the keys to the secret sauce and know where all the crown jewels are kept, that are able to access this information and exploit it. And those are your biggest risks. And we'll examine on that because that's ultimately an employee at Desjardins that's being charged with respect to the breach on it. So, and then none of us locked down and they're still dealing with issues. Again, all as a result of cyber attacks, malware, phishing attacks, everything that goes through that. And when your computer screen looks like that, and it says, do not reset, do not rename, do not delete, do not do anything, there's not a whole heck of a lot you can do. Technology is great when it works, not so much when it doesn't. So, top 5 cyber threats that are out there operating right now in this capacity. Ransomware, phishing, data leakage, which is us exchanging information not necessarily intentionally, but it happens. Hacking, accessing somebody's computer directly, and like the Desjardins threat, insider threat. And the difficulty in the insider threat is you have no control over it. All the stoppages in the world aren't going to necessarily protect you from someone that's after that information. You have computers, they have passwords, you have systems, they have access. It's very, very difficult. It's hard enough to protect from the outside in, but from inside in is even more difficult because they have alternatives. Most of those are generated through links to social engineering, and we'll discuss in detail what social engineering is and what it requires, but it's also through social media. Is there anybody in the room that doesn't operate in social media in any capacity? Right. Not at school. Right? Sometimes I'll get some elderly individuals, they're like, no, I don't have anything. You can't say the same thing about your spouse or your kids or your grandkids. So through one degree of separation, we're all directly compromised by this. And we'll show what social media has in the way of information that's out there. So, if you want to remain private and you want to keep the secret recipe hidden, the crown jewels hidden, never utilize your personal device and your computer for business and personal simultaneously. If you do, everything that you share from a personal point of view is shared with the business. Everything that you share from a business point of view, the person can potentially access through their site and their off-site otherwise. You need to separate the two, and I will repeat that a number of times. If you have any police friends, individuals involved in cyber intelligence and security, you will see they're always carrying two phones. They always have two devices with them because they are separating those two things, and you need to. So InfoSec professionals are individuals that I work with that are the experts in these fields, and they say there's 5 top things to remain secure on your computer. Maybe we're going to pause for a sec, and what you're going to think about is what they are. In your own mind, write them down if you choose to, or just pause and think, okay, what do I have to make my computer safe? And as you roll through those, write a list in your own mind. We're going to pause on that, and then we're going to cycle back at the end of the presentation with respect to that, so you can identify what they really are, because we're going to address them as we go through. So, everything in this day and age is connected to the internet. Nothing's not. The projector is, my laptop is, my remote here in my hand is, the mic on my hip is, everything's Bluetooth enabled, Wi-Fi enabled, RFC enabled. They all have that technology and they talk to each other. So when we think about those, it's pretty simple 5 things that are listed for Wi-Fi enabled. We think of like the computer, our phone, a modem, the printer, and maybe your TV. But when we expand that list and we think a little deeper and we dive through what the rest of the world is connecting to, like our cars, our actual cameras that upload photos automatically, internal security systems, gaming systems that your kids utilize every day, our navigational, our GPS, our home appliances, fridge, water heater, lighting, thermostats, all those devices are interconnected. Kids' toys now are interactive, have exploits available to them, and more concerning is medical devices. If you have a defibrillator or a pacemaker embedded in your chest, well, guess what, folks? That's Wi-Fi or Bluetooth enabled, because that's how it talks to the computer when you go into the doctor's office, and that communication goes back and forth. If there's an exploit in that, you could actually flatline someone with the proper technology and how to do that. They've stolen Tesla cars through Wi-Fi, they've derailed airplane navigational systems. All of that is scary stuff when you think about it in the big cyber world and how it affects us. So it's no longer the Internet of Things, it is really the Internet of everything. And everything is possible exploited through a Trojan horse. And a Trojan horse is basically the analogy of the old city of Troy, where they brought the wooden horse in and brought those relevant particulars, the troops, into the door. Now the Trojan horse is the malicious software, the malware, the ransomware that's being imported into your systems internally that causes the issue. So what do those look like? There's a variety of different traceable methods, and I'm unplugged, so give me a sec, I thought it was plugged in. And my battery's turned off. And we're good. Alright, unauthorized access. You go into somebody's computer, what's that called? When you're not allowed to. Anyone? Laurent? Hacking. Hacking is unauthorized access. And now I've lost my remote. Oops. I do not want to play with you. New technology is great. Will it work? Yeah, I don't think so. If you get someone to click on a misdirected link, which is what looks like what just happened, what's that? Sorry? Phishing, right. Phishing with a PH. And if we make that directed at a specific person, we're targeting an individual, what's that one called? That one's spear phishing. Now, if we're after, and we're gamblers, and we know where the money lies, and at casinos they use this term all the time, and we're going after the guy that's high-targeted, detailed spear phishing, the guy with the money, the guy that signs the check, what's that? That's whaling. So when we take an individual that takes misdirected code, and it's embedded into your system, that's farming. That's collecting all the information, all the keystroke monitors, all the relevant details that's out there that allows them to get information about you. They're farming for the information. Access between two computers is known as a man-in-the-middle attack, MITM. An example of that would be if you saw my computer pause out at the beginning, Spam Hackers Inc. comes up. Well, my computer and my phone are named that way for a reason. Because you're very unlikely to try to connect to my network with that particular name, unless you know a few things about computers. So I challenge you to go ahead and try. You may get a malicious payload. However, a man-in-the-middle attack works quite simply from the point of view that if you go to Starbucks, aka $5 to get your free Wi-Fi with your $5 coffee, you get free Wi-Fi access, and you put that code in there. It's not very difficult for me to go into Starbucks and derail their server, because it's plugged in right over in the corner there, and make my computer, instead of Spam Hackers Inc., make it Starbucks. And I use the same access code that they have posted on the whiteboard, and now you're logged into my computer. That's a man-in-the-middle attack. So if you're connected to the conference Wi-Fi right now, do you really know that it's the conference Wi-Fi? Is what you have to ask yourself. And are you willing to share all that information that you're going to offer through and ultimately get there? Now, I flew in from out of town, and I just logged into my flight. Now, I'm using that off my phone, which is protecting everything else. I'm not using conference Wi-Fi to give all that away. You need to be very careful, though, when you're tethered to stuff, what it looks like, or if you're using outside Wi-Fi to prevent a man-in-the-middle attack. If it infects and locks the computer, everybody's affected by this. You know about this. Quite simply, that's ransomware. And the last is using an outside device to access computers and systems, and that's known as stalking. Now, what stalking is essentially utilizing an outside device, whether it's a remote, a USB key, something that allows you to plug it into your computer. Now, I can guarantee you, the majority of this room, if they were at work and walked into the bathroom and ultimately saw a USB key on the bathroom shelf where you wash your hands, or out in the hallway, and it said vacation photos on it, and you're at work, you would probably go to your computer and go, I gotta get this back. I'm a nice, proud Canadian. We're polite. We do the right thing. And I'm gonna plug that into my computer to see whose vacation photos these are. You just infected your computer or your entire system with that outside device by plugging that item in as the simple device of stalking. Now that malicious code, the ransomware, has been embedded within the system, and you've created it. Because the action of plugging it in, unless the IT people have it set up really specific, where any outside devices are locked and require an encryption key prior to being plugged in, it's going to happen. I go to a specific bank that will remain unnamed. I look at their monitors. They're very close to the front desk. All their USB ports are fully accessible while I stand at the counter. And that's kind of staggering if they don't have that properly blocked out. So it's concerning. We do things that are called known as there's blue hat hacking and red hat hacking. Combined, they're known as purple. So we're involved in both sides of that. And the red hat side of that is the physical infiltration of your system. The blue hat side of that is where I'm going after your individual computer physically. I'm trying to compromise your system. I'm trying to get in with an RFC tag. I'm trying to physically get into your computer. My company specializes in what we describe as human intelligence. Human. I have surveillance specialists from around Ontario and across Canada that deal with physical surveillance, and they're experts in that, and they can shadow and get into buildings without compromise. And when we can do that in combination with a hacking attempt, we can compromise the systems quite easily, and I can get access to that computer. So it's not just the computers and the hardware, it's these things. It's the social media sites that affect us every day. And we asked at the beginning, there's nobody in the room that's not affected by social media, so what does that look like when we think about that and how effective that is? What's the #1 social media account out there in the world? Facebook. #2, Instagram. I'm going to correct you in a sec. It's there. It's not #2 and it's not LinkedIn. It's what all our kids or grandkids spend all their time on. No, but they watch this instead of TV. YouTube, and we forget about that. It's actually a social media platform. Then we have the others that were called out as Instagram, Twitter, and then finally we're probably all on this as public professionals and individuals in the public eye, which is LinkedIn. We have those accounts because we want to put our platform out there. We need to be visible. So when you look at those and you think of how they take all their information, it's kind of scary because who actually went so far to read the end user agreement on any of those previous sites that we may have accounts on? Has anybody read an end user agreement for Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, or LinkedIn in its entirety? No. What do? We look at it, it says you have to accept the terms of service, and it's 17 pages long alone on Facebook. We scroll to the bottom as quick as we can, we click accept, and then they ask us the second time and they say, are you sure? And we're like, yep, but we have no idea what we agreed to. So P is for privacy, and we work in this profession that it's important to have privacy, but guess what, folks? If you're using these apps, it does not exist. There is no such thing as privacy when it comes to any social media platforms or any online resource in that capacity whatsoever. Now, I'll give you an example of what an end-user agreement says. This is taken straight from the end-user agreement from Facebook. And it says, you grant us non-exclusive, transferable, sub-licensable, royalty-free, worldwide license to use any IP content that you post, period. And they even go one step further to warn you that your username and user ID, i.e. your account number, like your banking information or whatever else they have about you, is in the URL of your profile. It's kind of staggering when we think about the fact that we're okay with that. Because 10 years ago, 15 years ago before this existed, if I told you to put your filing cabinet out on your front step or in your front yard with your kids' names, dates of birth, where you travel, when you travel, how long you go away for, where you work, what you had for breakfast, what your favorite restaurants are, or anything else, you'd look at me like I was whack. But we all do it every day. So you need to think about that for a second and what's that going on. The other thought to consider when we look at all these particular issues, come on.
Thank you, Mr. Zuckerberg. Would you be comfortable sharing with us the name of the hotel you stayed in last night?
No.
If you've messaged anybody this week, would you share with us the names of the people you've messaged?
Senator, no, I would probably not choose to do that publicly here.
I think that may be what this is all about. Your right to privacy, the limits of your right to privacy, and how much you give away in modern America in the name of, quote, connecting people around the world. Question basically of what information Facebook's collecting, who they're sending it to, and whether they were asking in advance my permission to do that. Is that a fair thing for a user of Facebook to expect?
Yes, Senator. I think everyone should have control over how their information is used.
Well, we're not going to give it to you. We think you should have it, but we will not give it to you. They have been sued in every country around the world right now, and the current payouts on this are in the billions of what they're paying, but they still are out there. In this day and age, the most valuable commodity is big data. Big data is the #1 currency in the world. And you may question that, but just think about this for a second. If you think of the major corporations in the world, the likes of Facebook and Google, what do they own? They really don't own anything other than all our PII and everything we search, everything we do, what we look up for, what we're looking to shop for. When you have a rewards card like Air Miles and you go to the grocery store and it scans that, do you really think they're doing this out of the goodness of their heart and giving you those rewards and not getting anything in return? No, they're taking all your demographic PII and figuring out why you bought that brand, for what reason, for what particular scenario. Google, Facebook, and all the rest are no different. And if you wonder why PII, or personal identifiable information, is so relevant, then also ask yourself why all the bad actors are spending so much time and resources to get a hold of it. The reason why is because AI, artificial intelligence, and machine learning, 10 years from now will operate 50% of every system that we're out there, and we'll know what we're having for breakfast before we have it. And that's the reality of it. It is big data that is moving the world, and it will continue to do. Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank says the underbelly is weaponized social platforms in the form of election meddlers, misinformation peddlers, fraudulent accounts, cyber criminals, and scammers. Plain and simple, we need to watch out for misinformation. The New York Post, roughly 160,000 accounts were hacked daily on social media platforms, and we need to beware of fake accounts. There's nothing fake in this day about fake news, and we need to safeguard our accounts, and we do that with what's known as QFA, Two-Factor Authentication, or Multi-Factor Authentication, MFA. And we need to be careful what we share, because our trips and our vacation photos are great. If I'm a regular penny criminal, thanks for putting those up there while you're away on vacation, because I'm going to be in your home, break and enter your home while you're away, and I appreciate you letting me know where the dog's been kept and all the rest of it. And additionally, we're also putting out our dates of birth, our addresses, and all the relevant PII information. When we ask a quiz about what was your high school mascot, what's your astrological sign, what street did you grow up on, or whatever, that's all PII that's utilized for cracking and hacking, because then they have the information. Those aren't quizzes, folks. They're information gathering tools. And they give you some exploit that you get this new little thing and they're out there and it looks neat and you get to know what your horoscope's going to be for the year, but like, they're gathering information on you because you gave all that away. Your favorite color, all the rest of it. So that's the social media account. And then we have the internal threat, which is the social sabotage. And there's two major issues, is we have the facts and the effects. So the effects on that is 75% of board of directors or corporations identify reputational risk as a top concern. However, only 6% of those individuals say they're well-versed in social media issues. So the scarier part about this is what it affects. It affects sharing confidential or regulated information, embarrassing information. 80% of these companies are somewhat concerned about that. So 6% of it have knowledge, and 80% of others are concerned. There's a little bit of a gap there, really big one. And the problem with that is it's not just the social media, it's what the people do with it. And they say it's some of the top challenges, and they can't control it without proper policy. The term somewhat concerned is concerning for me alone. I'm very concerned. This is a top priority. This is very, very concerning. And why? Well, let's look at some of the examples on that. I work by a company of Southwest, and I see these boarding passes all day long. I wouldn't think anything of it. But when you're working at the Southwest counter, and you take a picture of a particular boarding pass that not only has the flight information and the date on it and confirmation, but it has somebody's name on it. And the name in this particular one is ABCDE Redford. It's pronounced Absidy. But the clerk and the ticket taker at Southwest thought it would be comical because this young girl had a very unique name, and she thought it would be comical to post that on Twitter. That doesn't work so well in this day and age when you throw a small 6 or 7-year-old girl under the bus about her name, and she was mocked by the gate agent. The airlines apologized, and it starts to go viral across every news media out there. to the point where the mom is interviewed on ABC News.
A Texas mother says she's teaching her 5-year-old daughter that not everyone is nice. This after she says a Southwest Airlines worker name-shamed the 5-year-old girl. The family was catching a flight home from Southern California to El Paso a few weeks ago. When the gate agent saw the girl's name on her boarding pass, the mom says the worker started making fun of it.
While I was sitting there, she took a picture of my boarding pass and chose to post it on social media, mocking my daughter.
Well, her daughter's name is spelled A-B-C-D-E and pronounced Absidy. This story has generated more than 2,000 comments on the ABC 13 Facebook page. A lot of you sounding off. One viewer wrote, "It's sad that someone would make fun of a little girl within earshot of her. It's even sadder that her mom, or mother, gave her such a ridiculous name." Sherry posted, "No excuse for the employee, but when you give your kid a bizarre name, you do him or her a disservice." Southwest.
They apologize, they took it down. The reality of that is we live in a digital world. You cannot unring the bell, folks. Once the bell has been rung, you can't take it away. And in a digital world, it stays there forever. If you have a corporation or you're running a business and this is you, the problem with that is it's all documented and it ends up on places like Wikipedia. And if you Google the name Absidy in Wikipedia, lo and behold, the bottom right corner, it's there forever. It makes reference to the fact that she was name-shamed, and Southwest Airlines has its name associated with this forever, courtesy of one person's error. Now that's minor and time heals all wounds and will eventually go away, but there's way bigger issues than this that could be out there that affect your brand, your risk, or otherwise. There's lots of examples, and I do an entire presentation on social media sabotage that's with that. And it's not just those platforms. It's not just social media. It's everything from the Better Business Bureau to TripAdvisor to Reddit to Yelp to Glassdoor.com that individuals can throw out comments about your company, their bosses, or whatever. And people think they're bulletproof by that. I get probably about a call a week about this for my company to backtrace this kind of stuff where somebody's been slandered on a platform that they think they're bulletproof on, that they have a fake account. Well, we can go with enough evidence and get things called Nueva injunctions or Anton Filler orders to seize devices or get court orders, private court orders, to go to Rogers, Telus, Bell, and get the proper information that I need with the IP address and everything else to identify who those players are if they're doing that through work. So we can utilize those online resources, and it's not just those ones, there's hundreds of them, but if you think of all those interactive sites that are out there that people make negative comments on and they think they're anonymous, they're not, and that affects companies' brands. So how do we deal with that? We need to manage the risk and protect the brand, create a playbook on that, look at different levels of threats and brand them accordingly, identify certain social media activities, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, have a decision-making process in that. Who's going to speak about the company? Is it our social media officer? Is it the director of public relations? Is it the VP? Who's allowed to do that? It's kind of staggering, and then we need to write it down. Have well-written policies. We have to have training to our employees with respect to that. We have to monitor what's going on. We have to respond if there's an incident that we identify it and deal with that. Now, it doesn't seem that bad until we get to this. So this particular case is an employee that works for an elevator company, and he works in a union environment, and he's a new apprentice. And as a new apprentice, he's in his early 20s, and he's broke. Straight out of school, he's trying to make a job, he's getting through there. So it's a mentality of a union shop environment and a trade-specific, it's very kind of macho, machismo thing, and they start to challenge this young kid, because every day they go for coffee or lunch, and he's like, yeah, I can't go, I can't afford it, I'm trying to save money, I'm paying off school loans and all the rest of it, or I gotta pay for my tools or whatever. So the guys all decide, they're like, hey, we'll buy your coffee today if you, Bob's gonna chew off his fingernail and you need to eat it. And if you do that, we'll pay for your coffee. And we're saving us all a little bit of sensitivity. I won't describe how it escalates, but I will tell you what the final straw that broke the camel's back was that they challenged him to staple his nether regions to a 4x4 wooden plank. And we're not talking like desktop stapler, we're talking industrial stapler. And that's horrible, and absolutely, but the problem is he did it while he was on break at work. He's wearing the company logo shirt, and then they posted it to YouTube. So that's a true case. You can look it up. There's the case law associated with it. It's an employment case out of Ontario and through Crump. And the guy was fired, and so were a number of the employees that were involved in that. That's a risk to your brand, folks. That's all courtesy of digital, social media, sabotage, and everything else. So, there's a guideline for that to be used on employees. Basically, we need to keep work and personal separate. You can't be using those devices. You need to know as an employee if you're on a logoed shirt, if you're drunk and tripping around, if you're wearing company merchandise, that you are representing that company. And that needs to be told them. If you are communicating and you have a policy, it needs to be clear and purposeful in its communication. If you're one of those people that's allowed to be there. It also needs to be completely transparent and accountable and mostly respectful of others. So we kind of lose some of that in transition. I said I'm providing my slide deck. You'll never be able to read that from the back. That is a vanilla flavored personal use of social media operation guide for you, your corporation, your company. You can have it free of charge. It was sourced from online, and I've gathered what I thought was the most relevant particulars and merged them all into one document. Storage for the keeping, you can have it. It'll be in the slide deck if you want to utilize it if you don't have one in place. BYOD, show of hands of who knows what that is. Who has a policy that has bring your own device to work? Anybody get to use their own devices at work? A few. I notice in my presentations as I get longer along, at the beginning the hands go up high and proud and everything else, and as the presentation goes along and we get a little more intimate and I throw more people under the bus in your habit, the hands go a little lower and lower and eventually they don't come up at all. So that's fine, it's okay, I don't need the interaction. I just throw it out there from the question point of view. But BYOD has a lot of advantages. I own my own business. I have 35 plus employees. So for me, there's a lot of great benefits to that. I can reduce my spend. At $1,000 a phone, at $35,000 for my employees, that's an expensive proposition to give everybody a phone, give or take the cost on that. I'm a Mac guy. I love my Mac. I run Apple everything, and if you gave me a Samsung or an Android, I'd be very lost on how to navigate through that. It would be a learning curve. So it doesn't work so well for me, so it allows for better personal preference, which ultimately leads to more efficiency and equals less downtime. And that's what business is about, is making everything as profitable and as efficient as possible. Now on the flip side of that is the obstacles associated with that. When I own this device, computer, phone, or otherwise, as a business, it's my device, company owned. And the benefit of that is huge. Quite simply, it relates to the fact that when we broadcast information or we're out there and dealing with scenarios, if it's your device, I can't access it. If it's a company device, I can take it off you anytime, any place, anywhere, any way I want. I had a client call me up and dealt with an internal theft issue and a kickback with respect to tenders that we were investigating. So he says, I need to get this phone off the guy. We want to access his computer. How long does it take to mirror the drive? So you guys could do forensics on it. And I'm like, okay, well, why are we doing this surreptitiously? And he's like, well, how else are we supposed to do it? I'm like, they're company phones and computers? He's like, yeah. I'm like, does he have a company car too? He's like, yeah, he's a sales guy. It's fabulous. What we're going to do, quite simply, is we're a very large company. We're going to go to the fleet. We're going to get him a new car. There's your new car. Congratulations, you got a new car. We're bringing him into the office. We take the keys off the old car. And then when he walks into the office, we also take his computer and his phone and we upgrade both those devices for him as well. We do a SIM swap card on the site. We take the phone, the computer, and the car. We lock them down. They're not accessible remotely anymore, and we own them. And now I can take my sweet time to do all the forensics in the world to find out that he's been giving the vendor list and selling all the company's secrets to another person that he's about to go work for and gave them all that information, and we can do the forensics on that. That's the benefit of owning your phone corporately versus not. So that's a massive issue from an internal investigation point of view. There's less supervision on that phone. I don't know what he's doing. If he owns it, if I own it, I can look at it as much as I want. I have the knowledge and control to do it, and I can maintain my corporate privacy when it comes to that. So it's worth the investment to own these corporately and look at them from that perspective because I can access that info and the data as I choose. So market share. Your phone in your pocket, this little device, worth $1,000, has more technology in it than put the man on the moon or launch the space shuttle. It's also the number one way that your company, municipality, government, or otherwise is going to be compromised. It's going to be the downfall of you guys, plain and simple. The reason why is because of what this next scenario shows. There's two major devices in North America that we deal with. Joe, and you don't have to worry about this, I won't throw you under the bus. Who operates on an Android platform? So typically about a third of the audience in Canada, and everybody else is on Apple. Any others? Anybody using Microsoft, Windows, Huawei? Anybody with Huawei? Because you have to leave. Trying to stay sponsored hacking, courtesy of the phone. So the two major players are Android and Apple. Worldwide statistics show that Android has 86.2% of the population, and Apple has 12.9. Now, Canada and North America in particular are very unique that we're actually almost the opposite of that. We're usually 2/3 Apple, 1/3 Android, and especially from a financial perspective, we just have a better quality of life. It's a more expensive platform. Androids are a couple $100, $300. A brand new 11 at 256, I think ranges in the $1,600 range right now for a phone. It's just for donkey. The other platforms out there still to this day are Windows, BlackBerry, and other. They represent 0.6%, 0.1%, and other is 0.2%. Other is old school Symbian phones, the flip phones that we work, aka dumb phones. They're dumb because they don't typically connect to the internet. We call them burner phones. We use them in undercover investigations all the time. The bad guys like to use them because they think they're untraceable. They're not. So they're just cheap to get rid of. They're a dime a dozen. You can buy, literally can buy 10 phones for about $200 and you can throw them out. They're literally possible because it's such old technology. When we look at individuals with compromised devices and compared that, now if we think of this room as the entire globe, everybody in here has these phones. That's the representation of what the globe has for phones. Of that 1,000 phones that are around the globe, 10% have been compromised, roughly. Compromise-wise breaks down to that. So of the 1,000 phones, 2 of those 1,000 phones are Symbian phones have been compromised because the software is so old. BlackBerry has never been compromised. And it staggers me to this day that it's the platform that has died for whatever reason. They got lost in the app development stage. And the reason they got lost in the app development stage is because the apps aren't secure. Very difficult process to maintain continuity and how rapid and how many thousands of apps there are, hundreds of thousands of apps there are, to maintain that continuity of their security. So they stepped out of that game, and that's what swallowed them up. I really think you're going to see one of the other players pick up BlackBerry as a separate platform and have certain messaging that's available for that. Peer-to-peer messaging on BlackBerry, BlackBerry Messenger, still one of the most secure platforms in the world, encrypted end-to-end on both sides. So if you have BlackBerry stock, hang on to it. It's probably worth a lot less than what you paid for it, and just hang on to it. It may bounce back. I'm doing that with mine. Windows never been compromised. It just doesn't have the market share to drive it. Apple has 1.3%. There was 2 exploits on Apple a number of years ago. People haven't updated their software, so the exploits still stand, so therefore they're still registering as compromised devices. And Android owns 96% of the compromises. Now, that's not to say all Android devices are bad or there's issues or whatever. It's just the platform. Plain and simple, Android's platform is open source platform. All of the apps are developed and they're not monitored. They allow them to go to market. Unless an exploit has been identified, they won't take it down. The exploit can exist. And then you've read about the flashlight app and this app and all those different scenarios. Those are exploits in the app. The difference on Apple is Apple won't let an app go to market that they haven't tested themselves, and they actually offer a reward if you find an exploit in one of Apple's apps, and they take it down. So there's different culture on that, and this is the culture of Android. They stay straight up. We cannot guarantee that Android is designed to be safe. The format was designed to give more freedom. When people talk about 90% of the malware for Android, they must have, of course, taken into account the fact that it was the most popular operating system in the world. If I had a company dedicated to malware, I would also be addressing my attack on Android. says Sundar Pichai, the CEO of Android. Anybody know who Sundar Pichai is? Because he's not the CEO of Android anymore. Anybody know where he works at all? You might have heard of this company. And like I said at the beginning, they're not concerned about your privacy either. They want all the data points that's on there. They want to mine all the data. They want all your PII. They need to own that. That's what they own, is the business on that. So it's kind of scary. This is a whole resource that you can take with you back to my Facebook argument about the fact that we don't read our terms of service. This is an extension that you can add onto your browser on your computer or your corporate computers, municipal computers, that any app that goes to get downloaded on this will give you the terms of service, and they'll tell you what they say straight up. Instagram says it's very broad copyright license, you can't see it. YouTube says the personal information will be shared. Google says services use tracking pixels, web beacon, browser, fingerprinting, yada, yada, yada. Facebook says straight up they use identity and other ads. So those are all the bad ones, and they all get no class, or class C and D. And then private browsers at the bottom left here, like Quant, and this is the password keeper, LastPass, they get better ratings. They're both in class B. And DuckDuckGo is a private search engine on the bottom, and they get class A. There's no tracking embedded in their system. So, good little add-on for you if you're interested in it. Just go to termsofservicestudentread.org, and you can look at that. You can download that to your computer. You can know exactly what's going on and how they're accessing the information associated to you and your platforms and your computers. Is anybody familiar with this? Does anybody know what ghosting is? And it's not the dating reference of ghosting. This is not where we used to call it like a blind, where they didn't show on your date or whatever, or stood you up. The new term is ghosting on that. If you get stood up on if you're out there using a dating app and nobody shows, they call that ghosting, that they didn't really see you, they saw you, they didn't see you, they pretend not to. Ghosting is different in the computer realm, and what it deals with is Google Maps. Now, what you have is there's users that use out Google Maps, and you can place pins at different locations. Does anybody have a small business? When you go on Google Maps, you can look at that and you'll see a business that's listed on Google Maps, and it says, is this your business? Or if you've ever Googled that and it says, you want to claim this business? That's the premise of ghosting. Individuals are now out there claiming businesses that are not their own and representing them as their own to get your PII, your personal information, your passwords, and all the rest of that, and putting pins down in maps when you look at it. The difficulty with that is you can claim your own if you want, but typically banks, government agencies, hotels, and any businesses, they're not doing it. And the problem with that is Google's got all this data set that's out there that shows all these individuals, and that's what it says. You can verify your own business. Well, here's the problem. There's two ways you verify your business. Number one is you call them from the registered phone number of the business. They have call display, and they're like, yeah, that's you. Well, sorry, folks, if you haven't heard about it, there's a thing called spoofing. I can make my phone look like any phone number from anywhere in the world with any business name associated with it. We use it for investigations all the time. The bad guys do it too. If I spoof that number and claim it with them, it doesn't matter. I have the info. The other way is you click on the link and they send you a postcard. And we all know that Canada Post is the most secure way of delivering stuff in the world, because those super box keys never get stolen at apartment buildings or out in the country, or nobody accesses those and steals packages, and there's no corrupt government employees. So we don't have to worry about that going awry, because it's literally a postcard that has your code to claim the business on it. So it's not the most secure platform, but Google wants that. And what happens is, and I apologize for the slide, you can't see it at all. It's blurry. So what it is at the top here, this is in Toronto, and this is a real-life example that we're involved in investigating. We have a pin here by a woman by the name of Iva Bogdanova, and right here we have Scotiabank at Bathurst and Rutherford Road in Vaughan. Now, when I click on that pin, I get this information over on the side. The address is that of the bank. The website says scotiabank.com, However, the phone number is not Scotiabank's phone number. When you call that phone number, you get this. I'm a mortgage broker that used to be a mortgage specialist with Scotiabank. Not claiming to work for Scotiabank. She has pinned herself and tagged it associated with Scotiabank, has the phone number listed to the website on Google Maps, and now you're going to feed her your banking info. Or you're going to get logged into whatever, or she's redirecting you to her own mortgage brokerage, or whatever the case is. There's malicious intent here. And that's done via ghosting online. And if you think about it, it could be the employee of the business, it could be business competitors trying to compromise you, hackers, data collectors, or whatever. Now, if you don't think this is real, these are real statistics. Google suspended 100,000 businesses between June of 14 and September of 2015, and they have stopped reporting on how often this is happening. So you can try to reclaim your business, but be proactive about it. Claim your corporations and your municipalities now before someone else claims you for you, if you're not aware of that. Who's wearing these? Who's got one of these on their wrist? Now the hands get really low. There's probably about 50% of the audience has a fitness tracker in some capacity whatsoever. And just like Facebook, in terms of service we didn't read, we know what they're doing, right? We know what those fitness trackers are doing day in and day out for us. We know they count our calories. We know they certainly count our steps and how many flights we went up or down or whatever, or how often we've been active. But what we didn't realize is that they're doing a lot more than that. And there's a company called Stravia that sells all that data. You can pay for it. You can go online and buy a specific data cluster for a specific area on all the Fitbit users. And you're like, what's the big deal? They know where I walked, they know where I didn't walk, they know what I did. Well, I trained for law enforcement and a little bit of the military as well, and also in private sector, we do a lot of executive protections for high-value targets. We're involved in some certain scenarios where people need that privacy and that personal security. So where my team goes out there, this is an issue when somebody's wearing these because they've already mapped all that out, and that's difficult. We're building a global heat map, and here's what they claim. Our global heat map is the richest and largest of the world, most beautiful data set of its kind, its visualization. 2 years of trailing data from Stravia's global network of athletes to give a sense of the scale. Here's what it consists of. In 2 years, they've obtained the following. 700 million activities, 1.4 trillion latitude and longitude mapping points, 7.7 trillionized pixels of rasterized data, 5 terabytes of raw data, a total distance of 16 billion kilometers, and recorded activity of 100,000 years in the course of 2 years. And again, you're thinking, it doesn't matter, it doesn't affect me. It really affects you if you happen to be special forces operating in Iraq at a clandestine site that isn't public knowledge, and the enemy is trying to nuke you off the planet of the Earth because they are all wearing the fitness trackers as they run around the border of the closed-in compound and do their training exercises every morning. Now I know exactly where they are and what the perimeter of the fence is. Now when you deal with scenarios in law enforcement or individuals' homes and have executive security or otherwise, this is a major compromise. May not affect you personally, but if you're the mayor of a major city or the Prime Minister of Canada or the President of the United States, I guarantee you they're not wearing those for that exact reason. So, if you have scenarios where you have computers that have been compromised, where you have phones that have been compromised, where you're subject to a hack, a crack, ransomware, whatever the scenario is, understand that there is a proper way of doing things, and your IT people that were supposed to be there to help you in the first place, that possibly didn't do their job properly, created this problem, are probably not the best unbiased individuals to try to save that scenario. And understand that there is a precedent on how you have to get the information. This is a criminal code offense that related to terrorism, that the info wasn't gathered properly, and the terrorists almost got away with it. They allowed it, and the Bourdieu off the record after the fine about Facebook posts and how the metadata was acquired. That's the standard. You can look up at that and look at it, but my message to you is use the professional when you have one of those scenarios, because IT got you there in the first place, and they're probably not going to be able to get you out. If you have resources that are simple and they've been identified, this is another takeaway for you in the sense of resources that are available for different scenarios. The International Association of Chiefs of Police provides a great data set on everybody from Apple all the way down to Craigslist, to Pinterest, to PayPal. If you have info that's been compromised and you need to recover it, or you need a cease and desist taking place, you can quite simply go to that website and they will tell you how to do it, how to make the application, how to get the information removed, and what the legal requirements are to do so. Now, we talked about this, hacking, phishing, spear phishing, whatever. I'm going to give you two real-life examples. And they're going to involve some additional aspects, because those are the access methods or the infiltration methods. But all that social media, all those different platforms are utilizing these resources of data collection. Cookies, combing, screen scraping, web beacons, data mining, cache extraction. Very technical terms, they require a lot of information. Essentially, that's what I talked about, the PII of all those different sites that you visit, all those different social media platforms, all those different clicks that you've gone on that are now embedded into your company computer, your municipal or government computer are doing those things. We won't get into that, that's fairly high tech. However, quite simply, is if I take two of those, if I take one from the left and one from the right, let's go with data mining and spear phishing. Now I'm going to pick on someone. Your name? Melissa. Where do you work, Melissa? Town of Calverton? Okay. And you have kids? Okay. Well, perfect. So Melissa works for the town, has kids, and she's out there thinking nothing of it. Now you have social media accounts? Your kids do? Yeah. And we can't control that, right? We have no idea. So I can guarantee you, within about 3 minutes, I could find out where Melissa works, who her coworkers are, what school her kids go to, what their hours are, what they have a PA day. I could probably map them because the geotagging is enabled on their app and everything else. Here's where the exploit happens. Now I know that Melissa works at the town, so it's not hard to figure out her first name, last name, and the town email, even though it's not public, right? Melissa.smith@townofwhatever, done. Email crafted. Now I send an email that says to her as follows. Hi Melissa, it's Principal Jones from ABC Academy where her kids go to school. I want to let you know that please be advised we are currently in a hold and secure. We have an active shooter in the neighborhood. The kids have been locked down. They're safe. There's nothing to worry about. There's a bank robbery in the neighborhood. You craft the email, any emergency you want to craft. There is zero harm to Melissa and there is zero harm to her kids at this point. Just click on the following link that will take you to our website to figure out on how to extract your kids from school at the end of the day and detail our policies with respect to the hold and secure. Now there is not a parent or grandparent in the room that wouldn't click on that link. And that was simply obtained through data mining and spear phishing exploit. And you're like, all right, yeah, that makes sense. And that's how they get you, right? FedEx comes, the package is being delayed, click on the link, go this route. I'm going to tell you the simplest tip in the world, folks. If you don't want to be the person that compromises your corporation, your municipality, your town, whatever it is, your government agency, don't click on the link. Go to the source. Open another tab. Type in that school board. Google it. Look at it. Figure it out. But do not click on the link. Don't be so lazy. When FedEx says your package has been misdirected, go to FedEx and punch in the code that they've given you, or you should know what the code is. It's your package. And look it up. Go to the link directly and look at it that way. I'll give you another one, and I referenced it before. It's the man in the middle attack. Now, nobody's going to put their hand up, but we all logged into the conference center Wi-Fi, and we're all on it right now, or we're at $5 getting our coffee later, and we're on the Wi-Fi, and you'd be surprised how it automatically connects to various places as you go. So here's the scenario as I walk into $5 and I just plug that server and the codes on the card, and I just walk in and I take those cards and I rifle it with my code, and I'll call my computer Starbucks1, and I gave you that scenario alone. Now I do that, and what I get is a cache extraction. Now Melissa's the mayor of the town, or I'll pick on Dale. Dale's the mayor of his town, and he's got an executive assistant that books his travel. And so she happens to be at Starbucks. She's multitasking, getting coffee for herself, and she books the travel while she's there on the company computer. Well, I got the cache extraction because I employed a manual middle attack. And you're like, okay, what is a cache extraction? Well, there it is. Go nuts, have a look at it. And you have no clue, but you have to filter through that data. When you start to look at that, that's coding, and you can break it down. I can find out that Dale is leaving on British Airways. In particular, he's leaving on flight number 831. He's going on a 777, Boeing 777. Thankful it's not a 787 Max. He's leaving from New York City. Don't know why, this is Saskatchewan, but and he's going to Hong Kong. Probably not right now. Nobody's going over there. But this is an old example. And we know that he's leaving on the 21st of January 2015. Now you're like, okay, big deal. They got that information. What's also in this is his account number and his rewards card for that, which ultimately gives us his seat number and his confirmation code. It's embedded in the cache extraction. It's all there. Now, when I deal with executive high-level individuals, if they're booking a ticket and I have somebody that is very high level as a CEO of a company and is sitting beside that, that's the human factor. That's that human resources that I can now book that flight at the same time as them. I can sit directly behind them in first class. I can watch them as they type away on their computer, access that computer, utilize their passwords, get all the rest of that, watch them log into their accounts, they're using the Wi-Fi. I can sit right beside them. I can chat them up. We're going to have a lot in common. We're going to get along famously. That's social engineering, folks. That's me becoming your best friend to learn everything there is about you, and then I'm going to get you to do something really simple and try out my new software, and now I own you. That's social engineering when it comes to a cache extraction and what that looks like. My friend Kevin Rippett out of Calgary provided those slides. He runs a computer forensic company called Digital Evidence Recovery, one of the best in North America. Fabulous guy. Password protocol. Size matters. And my wife tells me the bigger the better when it comes to passwords. There's approximately 40 years. Someone got the joke. Upper and lowercase. Everybody's nervous to laugh at that for some reason. If you think of your keyboard, you have two upper, lower 40 keys on a keyboard. One password, one stroke key is 80 possibilities. Two of them is 80 times 80 is 164. So if you use a 10-character password, anybody use a 10-character password? Some, there's a few. Okay, so that's great. So your IT people are up to date on that because 10-character password doing that 80 times 80 is more than a quadrillion different options. And why this has changed is because artificial intelligence and quantum computing have fast-forwarded computing 10 times. So what used to take 10 days to crack now is cracked in less than a day, right? So it's fast-forward that. So we need the size to offset the quantum computing. So we need to get bigger with that. So when we look at that, we need to think of passwords, and we have to have different phrases. And I won't ask anybody this because they never put their hand up. Guaranteed you, everybody in this room uses the same password more than once, more than 10 times. Yeah, few people are actually willing to admit to it. So we shouldn't. We can't do it, right? We need something that's 11 or 12 characters. I have 287 different passwords and accounts on this computer. And so it's impossible to keep track of. You have to have a process. So what you need to do is have a passphrase. Instead of a password, you pick a passphrase. And what we do is, you're like, okay, there's my passphrase. And you're like, how the heck do I remember that? It's not hard. It's really simple. If you need anything about me, you'd be able to figure that out. Quite simply, that says, Keith Elliott married Helen Murphy. They bought a house. They had 3 kids, 2 minivans, and 1 dog. That's my passphrase. Now, I don't need to take all 14 characters of that to make my passphrase. You can find your own of 6 or 7 characters. And then when you do that, go to a website, Microsoft, Bank of Montreal, Bank of Nova Scotia, wherever you're going. Decide what your criteria are going to be. You're going to take the first 2 or 3 or 4 letters from that website, so they're in the URL right there above you. Take your specific password or passphrase, plus a special character that stays the same all the time, plus the unique website opener at that website that's different to everything else right behind HTTP. Now you have all your passwords that are all different for every website that you visit, and you don't have to worry about it. And you can change them if you want. If work does, use the months, spring, summer, fall, or the seasons, I should say. You can use the month if you got to do it every time. Because they used to have to change every 6 months, so that's still in play, and we've got to work around that. So you can use the year as your opener, and then your specific password. It's different every time. You haven't used it before, and meets the criteria. Just make sure that your root password has the criteria that you need, which is typically uppercase, lowercase, number, and a special character, and 5 characters or 6 characters. That's what you have to remember, and then add on the special piece that you need. Or you can use things, and you can look at this and you can play on these password calculators. You can look at those. Or you can use the password people. And you want to look at things, and I'll fast forward to this. Two-Factor Authentication, multi-factor, has a digital wallet, and you can save off-site. My 280 some odd passwords on there are courtesy of one of these softwares. I use it Dashlane, but there's also Zoho Vault, LastPass, and TeamPass. They operate on what's known as a salted hash. And basically, salted hash is, in the simplest of terms, a hash is things that are chopped up and spread out all over the place is the salted. Okay? So when they use a salted hash, it's never in the same place at the same time, and it's always spread out, and so when they pull them back together, your computer has the encryption in it, and it allows it to pull it back specific to your computer. So they actually don't get it, they just get it all spread out, mumble jumble, and then you're accessing it through your PII. And the other thing is you get what you pay for. Do not use the free versions of this. Always pay for them. They're about $30 to $40 a year annual subscription, but then you're golden, and they give you a report on whether you reuse them or whatever, and all the InfoSec professionals utilize them. IP addresses are basically your identifier on the computer, so you want to make sure you use a VPN or a proxy. Hide My Ass is one of them out there. Moldavo, PIA is what I personally use. Secure VPN, Trustzone. And there's a bunch of other ones there that you can utilize. But are you using them on your cell phone? And typically the answer is no, but we access more and more on our cell phone all the time, and then all those websites that we visit get all that information, but we're not utilizing it, we're only using it on the computer, we're not utilizing it on our phone. So we need to employ them on our phone as well. Your IP address is basically your social insurance number to the internet. Technically, unless you're running a VPN, no computer should have the same IP address at the same time. With your IP address, I can tell it where you live, your zip code, your service provider, the domain tag, all the rest of that information, which helps me track you. That's how we find the bad guys. So they're typically running VPN. If you're using a VPN, you want to know, do they keep logs of your activity? How much do they keep about you? What are you tracking? Do they have physical control over their servers? We deal with laws in Canada that we should always be dealing with data at rest in Canada. If your data is not at rest, i.e. kept in Canada, stored in Canada, not the cloud, but the servers for the cloud, because the cloud, in reality, right, we know what the cloud is, right? It's not actually there. I can't get it. It's somebody else's computer. That's what the cloud is, right? It's not actually the cloud. The cloud is just somebody else's really big computer somewhere else. So that needs to be in Canada, or zero laws apply with respect to breaches in Canada and privacy or otherwise. If you have cloud serving, it needs to be at rest in Canada. And that's country specific. You want to make sure you deal with that. Here's what we have some difficulty with. And we're close on 10 minutes, so we'll leave a few for questions. Unlimited resources the fraudsters have, whereas us, everybody else, the corporation, we have to deal with limited workforce and budget. The bad guys have multiple targets for the same scheme. We see this all the time. Bank A, B, C, D, E, and F are all hit at the exact same time with the exact same scheme. And because we don't talk to each other, we have no clue. Whereas we got to deal with legitimate customers who can't share any of their information. It's all protected. They have little to no chance of being caught, and we have a huge risk if we get it wrong. We compromise our clients' data, our individuals' data, it's a massive risk. They have zero rules of engagement, doesn't matter. They just need the information, they'll go after it any way they want, they'll lock down your computer, you just need to push that button, you're golden. And we have regulatory bodies, we've got to play by rules. They don't have them. They're after theft of your PII, and we're worried about our reputational risk. We don't want to be the likes of Desjardins, Southwest, anybody else out there because of the reputational risk. They only need to get it right once. They just need one of those thousands of employees to click on that link. And we have to protect against every single fraud they throw at us. It's not a level playing field. And the game changes every day. And we have no right to stop doing what we're doing. We still got to stay in business, but we need to keep up to date with all of this constantly. It is a difficult battle. It's not an easy task, but we do need to stay on top of it or it goes sideways. So I asked you to write a list in your mind to keep of that. I'll give you the first one. Number one is maintain all your updates. Because that's the exploit. That's the hole in the wall. That's the dam is leaking, and if you don't plug it, I can get in through that hole. So you have to maintain the updates. That's why they come out. It has to be automatic. Number two, use two-factor authentication. If somebody tries to log into your system remotely, you should get a notification on your phone, on any of your accounts, especially your banking. It's not recognized. You should have this in play already. If you don't, do it. Number three is use the long password. Stretch those passwords out. Make them unique for every website. If I compromise one of your passwords, I compromise them all if you're reusing those passwords. Don't reuse them for that exact purpose. And finally, be suspicious of everything. Check it out. Google it. Don't click on the link. Go through that process. Go directly to the source of that particular scenario. So how do we prevent and detect this? And it's in the slide deck. You're going to have trouble reading those from the back of the room. Don't respond to emails that you didn't request. Don't click on links. Download messages. Go to the source. No one is going to ask for your personal information. They don't. Now, to that note, newest scam out there, side note, it's called call trapping. What it employs is the following. Phone rings, you pick it up. Hi, Keith Elliott, may I help you? Hi, Keith, it's MasterCard. We have an issue with your account. In your protection and our protection, please don't do anything. We don't want you to do anything. Hang up the call the number on the back of your MasterCard, and address the scenario. Oh, okay, great. Pick up my card, pull up my MasterCard, look at it, dial the 1-800 number. They have trapped my call. They've literally stuck my call on call waiting and are able to keep the line open somehow. Now they open a separate channel through the call waiting, and they have the pre-recorded message. And it says, hi, welcome to MasterCard. Please put in your card number. Beep, 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 beep. They just got that. Put in your authorization code, your expiry date. I gave them all that. And then they said, if you want card services, press this. Security, whatever, press 3. I hit 3, boom, I'm connected to MasterCard. They still have me on the line. Hi, MasterCard Security Services, may we help you? Yes, sir, for your security and our security, I have your card number as the following. Yes, you're right. Okay, great, because you just gave it to them. For your security, can you please confirm your name, your date of birth, and your address? Yep, here we go. Great, what's the problem? Oh yeah, we've had your card, it's been compromised, don't use it anymore, we're golden. You just gave them all the info. All because of the latest scam that's called call trapping. You want to be really careful with that. How you avoid it, quite simply for now, is hang up the phone. Don't call back. Wait half an hour. If your card's really been compromised, you're fine. You're good to go. No worries. However, when you call back, use a different line. If you do get that call, use a different line. Because if it is MasterCard, they will tell you, and that's what the call is going to be. They've mirrored that to the best of their ability. And it's going to, I can tell you right now, you heard it here first, 2020, that's going to be the biggest scam of the year. I'm trying to get that out there big and loud and tell people that you know, because it's kind of freaky. Hang up the phone, use a different phone to call back, and be very careful. Put passwords on your account. Dangerous corporate security culture, be aware of social engineering, we talked about that. make sure your devices, your routers, everything is professionally installed and the defaults are eliminated, because that's the biggest exploit in the world, using password or 5 zeros or whatever, because that's the default setting under admin settings. When you look at that, if you don't have a corporate culture on this, create one and review it on your protocol, apply regular software operating system updates, backup, and more importantly, untethered backup. An untethered backup is a backup is not connected to your system. What you want for that is essentially, it's away, it's in the cloud, it's not connected. If it's in your own server, the bad guys shut down the backup first, and then they compromise your system. So with that is you're already sunk because your backup's toast too. You're never going to get your info back. And there's municipalities that are dealing with that right now. You need to train people. I train around the globe, across Canada. I'm happy to do that. If you're interested in that type of training, come and grab a card afterwards. I'll do it. Use security audits and phishing tests. We talked about that, red team, blue team type stuff. Block third-party access to social media sites. Have an IT usage policy when it comes to shopping, Tinder, posting. You need to write it down, folks. And you need to look at the personal use of company assets. So the other piece on that is cyber coverage. It won't guarantee your recovery of stuff, but it's going to give you a vehicle of that. And so Suma Sure is who brought me here along with the Insurance Bureau of Canada to make this presentation. So they're going to get a free plug here. They say that only 7% of subscribers have insurance associated with their cyber coverage operation. Remember we talked about that gap? You all have exposure on this, every one of you, but only 7% of you are utilizing a vehicle for this. So that's not the greatest thing. And it's pretty affordable. They say that roughly $250 for a small community can purchase the coverage, or for a larger one, less than $4 grand a year. And so if you want my presentation, you need to go visit them at the trade show at booth 169. It's over by the big screen hanging in the center of the room. And if you write on your business card presentation, I'm going to give it to them, and they're going to send it to you with the whole slide deck for you in TXT format. And I promise you it's safe and secure and is not salted and has no bad links in it. All right?